On today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, hey, JD, how does that Katy Perry song go? You're hot and you're cold. You're yes, then you're no. You're in, then you're out. You're up, then you're down. And we have more than a few players who embody that perfectly. Let's discuss.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On NHL. We are your daily podcast covering the NHL, and we are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day and part of your daily routine. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we discuss players off to great starts and players off to not great starts with hot and cold. So we'll talk about Pacific Division. We'll talk about the Central and some honorable mentions as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by my Tuesday edition cohort, JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And as we discussed in the open, this is the perfect time to break out some Katy Perry lyrics because we have a handful of players that are in both ends of that spectrum in terms of really, really good performances to start, not so great for other players. And so it's probably a good thing if we start with two of the most notable names in the Western Conference who are not doing the best. And JD, one of the biggest signings of the offseason after the shocking departure from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Steven Stamkos has 1 point through the first 5 games of the season. And you look at some of the other numbers, he has 20 shots on goal through the first 5 games. Other part that is just kind of an oddity, I think, is the fact that his faceoff percentage is under 50% for the first time in like 6 years. And so I don't have any doubt that it'll pick up eventually, but I think it is certainly concerning that for a Nashville team that had so many high aspirations for this season, to have a guy that you expect to be a huge part of that group, not a great start.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, we talked about as this team could be one of those teams that have a slow start because there's so many new pieces. And yeah, with Stamkos only having 1 point, I mean, there's goalies out there with more goals than him right now. It's crazy that, like, the way he has started this season and the way this whole Nashville team has started this year. So I think for Stamkos, like, I'm not pressing the panic button yet, but I am starting to kind of dig around for it in the junk drawer right now to make sure that you could find it and just have it ready. Make sure check the batteries on it, make sure it's all good there. But it's a little bit worrisome. So, but we could be talking this time next week about, man, what a great week Stamkos had it, because, you know, like we've seen him pile up points really quickly. So this Nashville team, again, I know it's been a very rough start for them, and I like I said, I'm not panicking yet. I'm not panicking about Stamkos. I'm not panicking about this Nashville team. They are very talented, but if those top end guys aren't producing, you're seeing the results right now as this team has struggled to get out the gates.
Well, and the crazy part too is the Corsi 4 numbers for Stamkos through the early part of the season. 72.1%. And so, good. Yeah, that's a nice number, but that top line for the Predators, like Stamkos has been outscored 7-4 when he's out there on the ice. And so, defensively, expected to be one of those top guys. And when Stamkos is out there on the ice, opponents are averaging 4.3 goals per 60 minutes, which that's not a good number. And so if they can continue the puck possession, that would theoretically lead to more goals. And with better finishing, those numbers should definitely improve. But 1 goal in 5 games for Mr. Steven Stamkos is just that is an iced coffee level heat to start the season. So, but he's not the only one, because turns out a guy who is a real key to the Edmonton Oilers getting all the way up to the Stanley Cup final and coming 1 game away from winning it. Turns out Connor McDavid maybe is shaking off a little bit of the post Stanley Cup hangover.
Yeah, and I think for McDavid, and it's weird to say because he's got 6 points in 6 games, right? He's a point per game player right now, and most players aspire to be at least a point per game player. But when you're Connor McDavid, like, the bar is set so high for you because you are the best player in the world right now, and we just haven't seen, like, we haven't even had the McDavid, like, oh my God, McDavid highlight, right? Where everyone's running to their phone to go check. We haven't had one of those yet. It feels like this whole Edmonton team is still kind of waking up from and realizing last season's done. We got to start this thing again. And right now, the Edmonton Oilers and the San Jose Sharks have both scored the same amount of goals this year at 12 goals. That is, for a team like Edmonton, which can put up 6 goals on anybody any night. When you put up 12 goals in this, in a week plus of the season, it's not a good look for you. And you have to, and again, Connor McDavid, he does have 6 points, but the 1 goal, and we talked about this year where we thought, especially last year, he had 30 goals, which felt like a down season for him. We thought this might be the year where we see McDavid kind of back in that 50 goal range again. And not a great start here with just the 1 goal. And especially on a team where him and Draisaitl are both kind of relied on to do so much. You wonder how much of the hangover from losing the Stanley Cup final and just that kind of realization that you got to start the whole thing over again. If it's just a little kind of sleepwalking out of the gate here. Yeah,
it's one of those things too that, just because a team is talented enough to be able to dig out of an early season deficit doesn't mean it's something that you should be trying to do.
Don't put it on hard mode. It's already hard enough. You don't need to go straight to hard mode.
Even just being 500 at the start, and it's something that both of these two teams are going to have to struggle through to get back on track, and especially in what I think both you and I agree is going to be a very tight Western Conference playoff push, with a very deep Central Division and with very top-heavy standings in the Pacific Division so far. Every point matters, and so if you start your season off 0-5, you are having to try to make up 8 to 10 points at some point during the season. Now, if they go on a stretch where they win 18 out of 19 again this year, or record a point in 18 out of 19. That's certainly one way to get back into it, but
it just takes a lot, especially the way Winnipeg's playing right now. They've come out of this gate insane. They blew the doors out of the Sharks the other night. It was not even competitive in that game. Again, we know the Sharks are, but Dallas has already got 10 points in 6 games. You look at Utah, has got 9 points in 6 games. There's the Flames, who none of us expected to be doing what they're doing. A lot of teams have gotten out to hot starts, and maybe some of these teams cool down, but it's such a huge hole to try to dig yourself out of. You're just leaving less and less margin for error. And, if McDavid gets hurt or Draisaitl gets hurt or, Stamkos gets hurt, and Stamkos has not been the healthiest guy in the world, It's we could be talking about, man, what went wrong for the Oilers this year? What went wrong for the Preds this year? Two teams that we both squarely had in the playoffs before the season started, and it's still very early. It's a long season, but these teams need to start to kind of figure it out. I think it starts with these star players here, kind of getting on track, and kind of getting to, for Stamkos, you got to gel, quickly, because again, you don't want to get too far behind. And I think for McDavid, like, you have to kind of just shift it into gear here and start to see you got to find the Superman cape for Connor McDavid.
Yeah, and it could be worse, I guess. You could go from not scoring any goals to not being able to stop anybody from scoring, because a real shocker is the start of the season for the Colorado Avalanche. A lot of it has to do with what's going on between the pipes. And so we'll take a look at a rough start for the Avs goalie, but a bright start for the Calgary Flames in net. We'll talk about all that as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you took the Baltimore Ravens to absolutely annihilate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you are sitting really pretty. But if you took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get a ton of touchdowns in the second half, that second half over was a nice chance to really put up a big number if you were taking advantage. FanDuel lists everything from bets and stats all in one spot, so you don't have to have multiple tabs open to try to keep track of all of your bets. FanDuel does it for you. And best of all, you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So head to FanDuel.com right now to take advantage of this great offer. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure to check out all of the Locked On NHL episodes throughout the week as we keep you up to date with everything going on throughout the National Hockey League, which could include a rough start to the season for one Alexandar Georgiev of the Colorado Avalanche. JD, the numbers, not great. 1-3 so far in 5 starts.
Oof.
A 4.99 goals against average.
Oof.
An 811 save percentage.
Woof.
And 20 goals allowed in 5 appearances.
Yeah. It's not good.
No. And
not good.
You look at the games themselves. Gave up 5 goals on 16 shots against the Vegas Golden Knights. Gave up 3 goals on 9 shots to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Ended up getting pulled in that game. Gave up 5 goals on 36 shots to the New York Islanders. 4 goals on 25 shots to the Boston Bruins. And even in the win against the Anaheim Ducks, 3 goals allowed on 20 shots.
And they gave it was like 2-0 quickly in that game, if I recall correctly. Like, they had to battle back to win that game. Yes. It's not good. And, Money Puck has his goals saved above expected at -9.9. That means he's basically given up 10 more goals than you would expect for like an average goalie. And for a team, like, if you look at, Makar and MacKinnon and, some other guys have jumped at the massive starts for this team, but, you can't outscore all your problems, and they're trying their damnedest to outscore all their problems. But Georgiev he can't stop a leak right now. It's insane.
Yeah, you think about that too. He's over 9 goals below expected, worse than expected. So in 5 games, you're basically handing the other team 2 goals. And I don't care. I don't care if you are the Wayne Gretzky led Edmonton Oilers. I don't care whatever franchise. I don't care who you are. Spotting a team 2 goals is a tough hill to climb out of.
That's yeah. I mean, you're starting every game down 2-0, and you got to try to outscore any issues that you have. That's a tough way to live life right there. That's almost like 23-24 San Jose Sharks-esque right there. And it's just, if it wasn't for McKinnon and Makar and Ranson, and like this team would be, we would be talking about them as potential like Preds type of situation. They have tried some different things here, I know they claimed Kakinen, who he hasn't gotten in yet. They're trying some different stuff. They very close game against the Sharks on Sunday night that they were able to kind of put the nail in the coffin late in that game. The goaltending was better in that game, but still, like you got to figure out something fast, because again, you look in the division, as we just mentioned, right? Utah's off to a great start. Winnipeg's off to a great start. Like Dallas is off to a great start. You can't afford to fall behind, and the goaltending is letting this team down right now.
Yeah, 100%. And this is it seems like kind of a trend, because Georgiev last year was negative 11.9 goals saved above expected. The year before that, he had 26.3, so he was fantastic in 2022, 2023. But not as sharp last year, and now this year just already. And you think about that, minus 11.9 through 63 games, minus 9 already through 5.
That's brutal, man.
That's yikes, just yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I know they're going to be getting guys back here soon, but like those, like Chushkin, last I checked, he does not play goal. Last I checked.
No.
So
but you go from there to a little better goaltending from the team that I don't think anybody expected to be where they're at in the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, Dustin Wolf this year has been he's been great, and I think they've done a good job of for the Flames, like not relying too much on Wolf. It'd be easy, right? Keep throwing Wolf out there, but again, I don't want to say kind of protecting his, but you want to ease him into it as he's kind of navigating his first full season in the NHL. I know he's played a bajillion games in the AHL, but it seems like they have a good thing going right now. His numbers right now are absolutely fantastic to start this season for Dustin Wolf. So he's played through only 2 games right now. 944 save percentage, 202 goals against, 68 saves on 72 shots. And best of all, 2-0 for the Calgary Flames has been a huge. And there's still a lot of season. I still don't trust this team. I think the wheels will fall apart at some point just because of the defense. But great start for Dustin Wolf, as he's kind of being the guy, getting a first taste of being the guy right now for Calgary. And like you mentioned, none of us expected Calgary to be anywhere near the top of the standings at any point this season. And I think right now they're having a good time, and Dustin Wolf's a big reason for it right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those where a good start can bring in some really good vibes, and maybe you are able to keep it rolling. We don't know, because every season there is that benchmark of, if you're in a playoff spot by the time we get to American Thanksgiving, usually you're going to be all right. Like we said, it's a crowded field. It's a crowded Western Conference playoff field. A lot of teams angling for spots. And every win you can pick up early on, especially against the teams below you in the standings, is paramount. And so,
yeah, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to win, and then steal some wins here and there against the teams close to you, and you're probably going to be in a good spot there. So, but yeah, I think for Wolf, who's Calgary believes him. They think he's going to be the goaltender of the future. I mean, you don't trade Markstrom unless you think you have a guy who can be potentially, at least hold down the fort for you for a while. And it's good to see Dustin Wolf get out to a really hot start here for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, most definitely. And If you thought we were going to get through the whole show without talking about the goalie goal, you're nuts. Because don't worry, we've got another player off to a hot start on both sides of the ice as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So, join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Finishing up with our hot and cold starts in the Western Conference. And JD, we had a goalie goal. Ladies and gentlemen, Filip Gustavsson against the St. Louis Blues from his perch in between the pipes, lets one fly, and is able to score the first goalie goal in Minnesota Wild history and the 15th goalie to ever score in NHL history. NHL history! So it's a rarity and should be treated as such, which not only that, it'd be one thing if Filip Gustavsson just scored a goalie goal and was off to a meh kind of a start. He's off to a pretty darn good start in the net too. All told, 3-0-1 in 4 starts. He has a 1.49 goals against average, a .950 save percentage. All 4 of his starts have been what they label quality starts. And like we talked about with Georgiev, goals saved above expected, 6.3 above, which is good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
For a guy who on the potentially out there as a trade piece, over the past couple seasons here, I think for him, like and especially when you have Jesper Wallstedt kind of lurking in the shadows to be the next goalie of the future for the Wild, it's good for him to kind of get out here and set the tone. Yes, the goalie goes to nothing better than goalie goal on Twitter. Like it is just because all you see, doesn't matter what league, where it is from, you're just going to see the same. You're going to see the same goal 50 times from 50 different angles, and it's great. Inject it all into my veins. I was very pleased to see just goalie goal action that night on Twitter when I was. One, put him on the point on the power play. He'll be wild. He'll be unstoppable. 2, but like he's also, like you said, he's playing amazing in the pipes right now. And for a team like the Wild who have playoff aspirations, at least want to be around for it, having a goalie who can kind of come out and dominate for large stretches like they have and kick in some points here and there. I think it's a great start for the Wild and a great start for Gustavsson, who had some up and downs, I think, over the past year or so.
I like how John Hines has put it in that Filip Gustavsson is making a lot of really key saves for this team, but he's also making all of the saves that you would expect a goalie to make. Now, you may hear that and say, well, duh, you need your goalie to be able to do that, but the Wild didn't get that at any point last year. Like they got it here and there, but they were consistently falling behind in games 1-0. They maybe battle back to tie it at 1-1, and then all of a sudden they give up another goal to make it 2-1. They were always battling back from behind. I charted this for an episode of Locked On Wild. The Minnesota Wild with Filip Gustavsson in net gave up the first goal 20 times. Guess what their record was in those games?
Probably like 3-15-2 or something like that.
You're close. It was 6-12-2 in those 20
good.
games.
Yes.
In the games in which they did not allow the first goal, 17-5-1. So
yeah, that's
tell me.
Believe me, having watched Martin Jones for a good chunk of my life, giving up the first goal of the game, not a great start usually. It does make your life a little bit harder when you're basically down 1 or down 2 or down 3, 5 minutes into a game. Goalies making saves. Who would have thought? That's very important, Seth. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I certainly couldn't have been me because
I said the duck.
I just assumed that teams won every game 9-8 every night. Now,
Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, that might be how the Avalanche operate. But somebody who has, kind of finishing the theme here of somebody that we have each had a chance to really have a keen eye on. It sounds like there is a member of the Sharks that is literally carrying the team on his back.
Yeah, Tyler Toffoli signed this season with the offseason with the Sharks. 4-year deal, $6 million AAV. He has come in. I joked on the Locked On Sharks podcast all summer after the signing. Man's a walking 25 to 30 goals. Already has 4 goals for the Sharks in 6 games. This isn't like it's he had a hat trick one night and that was it. No, it's a goal a night basically for him. The Sharks have 12 goals this year. He has 4 of them. Not a big math guy, but I know that one. That's a third of the Sharks' goals right there. So Toffoli, especially where he was supposed to be kind of with Celebrini. Celebrini has played 1 game and is going to be out for a couple more weeks at this point. He's still been able to produce for the Sharks. And on the power play, 5-on-5, kind of wherever, like they've done a good job of putting some guys who can kind of distribute. Old friend Mikael Granlund out there, William Eklund, some of these other guys. But Toffoli he's come in and done his part of producing for a tough Sharks offense here. Again, they're averaging like 2 goals a game, and he's basically half the goals for the Sharks every game. So we'll see what happens as the Sharks team gets better, if he can continue to hopefully continue to produce. But it's looking like a great signing for the Sharks so far. Early returns are looking great for him. So
let's go to some honorable mentions, because I have one that maybe should have been a focal point, but I mean, I wouldn't have bumped Stamkos because I think that is certainly a concerning start. But how about Elias Pettersson? 2 assists in 5 games so far, but listen to this. 8 total shots on goal in the 5 games. And you look at some of the other numbers too, like from a face-off percentage under 50, not too much, but 49.2. But that's a guy that you signed to be a focal point of that offense. And I believe the stat that was mentioned on Locked On Canucks in one of their more recent episodes was that he has one even strength goal in the last 35 games that he's played. That's not the type of production you want from a guy that you signed to a mega deal to be the staple point of your franchise.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be the breakout Elias Pettersson alien superstar freak season, especially after the playoffs, right? And playoffs, we know he was not 100% in that playoff run. So I thought he was going to try to kind of come out and hit the ground running here. And it's honestly, it's disappointing because I'm like a huge Pettersson fan. I like watching him play, but I don't know what it is right now. But again, for a guy like that, I think he needs to be a little bit more selfish and just shoot the puck more. I mean, you are paid to put the puck in the net, and taking 8 shots, that's not, And they have a lot of talent, right? Miller and Besser and, Hughes, there's a very talented team. But still, I think he needs to be a little bit selfish. And if he needs to just have a game where he's just like, anytime the puck comes on my stick, I'm shooting this. I'm just going to let it rip. And if, we're in, see what happens. And I think he needs to maybe have that mentality for a couple games, see if one goes in the back of the net and see if he can start to build some momentum from that. Because I think the Canucks are a really good team, but that's also assuming Pettersson finds his game and is the Pettersson that we expect him to be.
Yeah. Almost as many shots that have missed the net entirely as have actually been on goal. So just not a great start, but another player in the Western Conference that is just playing out of his mind right now because he just continues to get set up from Nathan MacKinnon, Ross Colton.
Yeah, Ross Colton. He is, what was the old joke about Sidney Crosby having like the weirdest wingers right now? It's the same thing, I think, with Nathan MacKinnon, where you're just like, put anybody, and Ross Colton's like a fine player, but I don't think that's their first choice to put on McKinnon's wing there, but he's taken advantage of it. I mean, we've seen how many times do you put guys on, with superstars and they don't produce. Ross Colton, at least he's producing right now, and he's taking advantage of it. So Colton this season I think he's got 5 goals so far this year. He had 2 against the Sharks. Beautiful Nathan MacKinnon just doing beautiful things, but Ross Colton, putting it home right there. It's good to see for a guy who has won a Stanley Cup, scored the game-winning goal or game cup clinching goal, excuse me, for Tampa a couple years ago. It's good to see him get an opportunity and make the most of it. And I think especially for this Avs team, as they're trying to struggle to figure out things on the back end and with their in net, at least getting some production out of guys like Ross Colton while you wait for your goalie situation to even out and you wait for other guys to kind of get back from their injuries or their suspensions. And then if you need to slide them down the lineup, or if you want to keep them there, and then you can maybe have 2 really good lines, like gives you just more flexibility going forward. And I think for Colorado, who seem like they're going to have to outscore their problems, having Ross Colton help outscore your problems. Not on my bingo card, but the NHL's a mysterious beast.
Speaking of beast, Mark Scheifele, 8 points, including 5 goals in the first 5 games of the season for the Winnipeg Jets. And at one point, he scored 5 straight goals for the Winnipeg Jets. Off to a great start. This Winnipeg Jets team off to a fantastic start. Still the only unbeaten in the NHL, and they're getting good offense. They're getting good defense. They're getting great goaltending. But Mark Scheifele was one of the guys who, before last season, wasn't sure if he was going to be a long-term part of the process for this team. And he signs the long-term extension, and now he is, not to say that he wasn't before, but he definitely is now kind of leading by example and is a huge reason as to why Winnipeg is the toast of the Western Conference right now.
Yeah, like I said, I watched that. I got to watch the Jets, and just an absolute machine. Any mistake the Sharks made, and again, the Sharks are the Sharks right now, but just the way that they're able to capitalize on any mistake, they're deep. They have scoring from a bunch of different places, and that team's going to be good. We'll see if they can put it together for a long run. We've seen this from them before, of an amazing regular season, and then they get to the playoffs and they just aren't able to kind of find that next gears. I think that's the big question with Winnipeg is, okay, we've seen it in the regular season. Can you do something in the playoffs this year?
To quote Taylor Swift, I think I've seen this film before, but I didn't like the ending. I don't know why I went song lyrics so much tonight.
You're in your pop era right now.
I guess so. I'm in my bag, but I'm still just buzzing from the goalie goal, I guess. But that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On NHL. We appreciate you tuning in each and every day of the week. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes, and make sure to follow along with all of the hosts of Locked On NHL throughout the week, because we have you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.